Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for my malware bites. Oh my god. Um, just as I don't have ad blocker, I do have malware bites that pop up. Thank you all so much for coming to our spring community meeting today. Just as a note for everyone here, this meeting will be recorded and will be posted over on our YouTube after the meeting is all wrapped up. That way, anyone who wants to go back and watch anything or was unable to make it today will have the chance to. So we can go ahead and get started. So we wanted to start off with just a statement to you all about our vision for Wild West RP. Um, what we are all coming together to do is to create a community in which players can come together and create high quality role play and storylines with one another. Um, we are all here to make these long lasting stories and memories with this community. Moving on, we wanted to give sort of a breakdown just on some of our staff duty explanations. We understand that sometimes these can get a bit muddied with what members of our team do. So we wanted to go ahead and clarify that for everyone. So, not necessarily a member of a portion of our staff team, but very close with it is our media engagement team. These members create content for the Wild West community, such as like the Day One Guide, any of the recent developer diaries that we've seen pop up, showcase videos and guides, and then short form content for our social media that pops up. Amazing people. They put out such wonderful content. Next up, we have our developers. They are the lifeblood of both the back end of the server and the mechanics that you um, interact with in server. They create and polish new features and mechanics for our players to interact with and to enhance the roleplay experience. Moving into our staff roles, we have the base staff role itself. These members provide moderation within our Discord community. They handle technical support tickets. So, anyone having issues with their RedM or any sort of problem with their Rockstar or technical issues with their computer, you can open up a ticket. And more often than not, it will be our regular staff that handles it. They review our whitelist applications and help with processing in-game job roles and name changes. Moving on, we have administrators. So these members of our staff team, they conduct and oversee mediations. They're more involved with rule-based decisions and handling incidents with sensitive topics. And then in the reviewing of player reports, we all come together as a collective and go through them as needed. Moving up to community lead, these members support the administrator roles mostly and assist with manager level discussions. They additionally provide a line of communication between staff members, community, and management. They are a great role in bridging that gap that oftentimes we get disconnected from. And lastly, we have manager. We mainly focus on the management of forums, forum changes, any structural changes within departments. We create staff training and guidance, and we do the overseeing of in-game departments. So we are in contact with those department heads very much. So we see this topic pop up quite a bit in regards to player reports and why they are done the way that they are done in Wild West roleplay. So we wanted to just go ahead and give a bit of clarification as to why we have them the way that they are currently. So we have a public report system that is available on the forums, and this ensures transparency for multiple parties, ensures transparency on the admin plus side in regards to our thought process when discussing outcomes. It ensures that all evidence is submitted, any videos, screenshots, or player viewpoints, and is available to all parties involved. It also helps that if there is an individual who is not listed as a witness for a player report, but they happen to see themselves in a video or in a screenshot, they can pop in and give their own explanation on what they saw. And a public platform for reports makes individuals think before writing. At the end of the day, all members of our community, even if they are involved in a player report, are deserving of respect. And private reporting is often a platform where, for lack of a better term, individuals are more comfortable shitting on involved players, which is a thought process that we're not looking to foster at Wild West Roleplay. Um, Along with private reports, miscommunication often occurs, and especially when there's action taken from that private report, being able to publicly publish our thought process as to why we came to a conclusion just makes it very clear cut for everyone involved. So, the three main points that we have for having a public report system is transparency, dispelling rumors, and uniformity in understanding. So moving on to another topic that's been brought up is suggestions. So anyone who has recently checked the forums has seen the sheer amount of suggestions that not we not only have going back as far as 2021, um, but they've also seen that there has been a massive uptick in the response or the suggestions that have been responded to. The backlog of suggestions has been something that's been an issue for a remarkable amount of time, but it's something that we're actively working on changing. Some new processes are being implemented to make it much easier to track and handle these suggestions. Although it'll take some time to work through them, as there are so many, we understand that it's frustrating and discouraging at sometimes to see suggestions sit so long without being action on. But it's just our team is working diligently to sort through them all and in some cases implement them. Now, onto some of the forum topics. I'm sure that anyone who has been on the forums has seen some of the discussions pop up. And so we wanted to address some of the main points that we saw pop up in those. And if there, excuse me, if there is a topic that we don't touch on during this, but you do want more clarification on, or anything like that, please feel free to open up a ticket and we can go further into detail about that. So, first up is toxicity. Um, People are people behind their screens. We're all here to create a collaborative role play environment. Toxicity and distaste from other players is just not conductive to creating that collaborative environment. We strongly encourage members of the community to try and have empathy and compassion for the other members that are here. It doesn't matter if the player is new or has been here for a considerable amount of time. Just try to imagine how it must be to walk in that person's shoes and the things that they might be struggling with. If you find yourself making negative comments about another player, it's important to ask yourself if you tried to get to know them beforehand. And if you find that you simply don't click with them, you don't need to like one another. It's simply respect one another. It is perfectly fine to realize that you don't mesh with someone in role play or out of character, and just put a healthy amount of distance between the two of you. Staff involvement and engagement. So we've been working really hard ahead of this community meeting, including discussing ideas for further staff involvement. We're aiming for more transparency where we can moving forward. If you have any specific ideas for how you would like to see adjustment here, please let us know. We love to foster player events and creativity as much as possible. Players are just as valuable to this community as staff and can often be key in creating involvement that they want to see. So if you have any suggestions, please bring them to us. But we are going to be trying our best to show more of a presence and be involved for you all. In terms of general communication, as simply on the staff side, we intend to utilize the staff messages channel in Discord 3 above this community meeting to keep you all more up to date, along with our developer roadmaps that are available on the forums, showcase content from our media team. Those are all ways that we're taking steps to get communication, to build it up just a bit more. Government role play. Um, I know that some people mentioned it feeling stalled due to out of character approval on big ticket items, too much federal correspondence rather than actual role play. We're at a turning point for a lot of our systems, be them legislative or judicial, but we're hoping that these changes will mean far less red tape moving forward, especially for players in that government sphere. So you won't need to wait on this out of character approval. Um, in regards to federal letters, while form letters are a great resource to make corresponding with a large cabinet easier, there's absolutely no replacement for going in character and either meeting up with someone face to face or corresponding through the in game letter system. It might be a bit slower, but this allows for the possibility of in role play interaction. LEO, specifically LEO feeling as if it is a second job. Please take breaks. Um, while as an LEO, you are held to a higher standard than the average player because you are in a whitelisted role, it doesn't mean that law enforcement should be held as your second job. Whether it's giving yourself some leeway in the time that paperwork needs to be completed, or like going on a decompressing wilderness patrol with some of your other deputies, or just taking a walk around town and engaging with some of the players that are there. Role play is meant to be a creative outlet, and for many of us, a way to decompress. So please make sure that you keep role play a fun activity for yourself. Jack of all trades. So just remember that your characters shouldn't know how to do everything. Some of the best traits from characters are their flaws, especially if they can't do anything or do something. This forces players out of their comfort zone, whether it be finding a supplier for the item that they need, um, the food that they want to eat, a specific dish, or even the experience of learning how to do certain things, going under training for someone. Now, this doesn't mean to say that Jack of all trades characters is inherently bad, but knowing everything doesn't mean that your character has to be good at everything. Maybe your character knows how to wood carve but dabbles in silversmithing. Maybe their carvings are pristine, but each of their silver works always comes out a bit misshapen and just a tad tarnished. Roleplay consent and disengagement. There has been a feeling of a lack of way to disengage with roleplay that makes you uncomfortable. Um, First and foremost, this is why the OOC command is there. If you find yourself uncomfortable within a scene, please inform the other players that you are uncomfortable. And on the flip side of that, if you are receiving a message such as that, please make sure to respect it. Um, this isn't to say that if your character is getting robbed, that the OOC command should be used to get out of that anyway, but for situations in which you do not consent, such as like bodily harm, torture, heavy emotional scenes, OOC is a communication tool for that purpose. If needed, communication can be moved to Discord if you get the other player or player's contact information, and your boundaries can be discussed further to ensure that everyone is having a comfortable and enjoyable time in their role play. Um, if you find that you get an OC message from a player in the scene that they are uncomfortable with the current role play, your number one priority should be disengaging in a natural fashion. Just get creative with your excuses as to why the scene should end and move on, and then you can continue with your role play elsewhere. Um, for longer storylines where someone finds himself in the crosshairs, be it a player or a group, it's always a really good habit to reach out to them out of character to just touch base. Even if you just want to tell them that you're enjoying it so far, it's always a good thing, especially for these long winded arcs. That you make sure that you have communication with the players involved to make sure that they're either A, enjoying it, or that you know their boundaries for certain things. Lack of new characters and stories slash clicks. It can be easy to fall into groups that you feel comfortable and enjoy role playing with. And even if you find yourself playing a character that is very lawful or criminally minded, sort of that you stick with these types of people, you can still engage with other players in other spheres. create excuses to foster role play, even if your character isn't social for the sake of being friendly with these specific groups. There's no fault in gravitating towards certain players or groups of people, but creating role play and storylines, even in the most menial of ways, goes a long way. That small chat that you bring up in a Telegram office or that weird item that you've been searching for all over might just be the thing that another person brings up months down the line as one of their more memorable interactions. It is always a boon to loop people into your role play because at the end of the day, we are all here to create role play with one another. Unpopular decisions with the community. Staff making decisions without considering what the community actually wants. Wild West roleplay is vastly different from where it first began, and with that comes flexibility and changes that are necessary for long-term server health goals. In collaboration with our amazing department heads, we as a staff team have been working to build communication back up. We've been asking for pain points, insights, suggestions, and working hand in hand to create and implement these changes. While we can't do anything to change any silence or miscommunication in the past, we are working diligently to ensure that we are transparent as possible, as we possibly can be, seeking communication, assistance, and advice from the leads of these departments to foster the health of this community, as well as hearing from the general player base. People behaving unrealistically in game. Sometimes we get lost in the sauce, and the fact that Wild West roleplay is centered around a video game. One of the best things that we can do to pull ourselves back to behaving in a realistic manner is to remind ourselves that it's okay to slow down. You don't need to run from place to place or gallop quickly from one town to the next. Some of the best interactions happen during those downtimes, like inviting someone to trot alongside you as you make your way to another town, or taking a walk through town, or sitting down for a meal. Even outcomes like injuries, be them given to you by another player or just from an accident, can create amazing storylines where your character needs the support and reliance of others, and only serving to grow those connections further. On another note, if you happen to see multiple cases of individuals that consistently behave unrealistically in game and are constantly breaking immersion, please open a ticket or submit a player report. Low quality role play falls under the guidelines of Fail RP, and in most cases, we hope to guide players into constructive role play habits that keep up immersion for others around them. So this next topic, I'm going to hand it over to our head dev formulation. Oh God, if I can find him.
Hello. Okay. So there were some points about mechanics on the thread. We understand the concern about certain mechanics being locked behind whitelisted roles. Our goal is to create meaningful and rewarding progression while ensuring that specialized roles remain valuable. That said, we are open to reviewing the balance of these mechanics. This is including the gunsmithing, and any future ones that we plan on adding to ensure the gameplay remains engaging and accessible without diminishing the roleplay depth of these specialized professions. There has also been some talk about the economy and how it shifted. Uh, we shifted toward realism and structured player economy. Our intent with this was to create a dynamic and immersive world. However, we realized that too much focus was put on these aspects. And it may have impacted the overall enjoyment for some players. We're always looking for ways to refine the balance between realism, fun, and creative roleplay. And we welcome the constructive feedback on how we can enhance the experience for everyone. And if you have any ideas for that, tickets are open and suggestions. I'm going to pass it back to Titus.
Awesome. Thank you. So the next topic is being treated differently in character for actions out of character. Um, Just a reminder that players are not their characters, and if an issue stems from roleplay situations, the best course of action is to first reach out to the individual themselves and respectfully voice your concerns. This ties in line to what we discussed a little bit earlier about just putting yourself in their shoes and making sure that you are reaching out and creating some respectful communication between the two of you. Or multiple of you. And with that, for the next point, grinding for income, I'm going to pass it directly back to Form.
Hello, I'm back. A lot of people said they don't want to be grinding for income. We don't want you to have to grind for income. So after a long time and a lot of discussion and conversation, we have finally decided to implement universal base income. Everyone will be receiving $6 an hour. You will have to set your primary banks in the town that you choose, and you'll collect your paycheck there. They will stack with whitelisted jobs. So if you're making $10 an hour as a deputy, you will now make 16. Um, I say should. They will stack. I have checked it. Um, but yes, UBI. It, yeah, it's an in-game hour. I should have said that. Or sorry, it's a real life hour. Long day. Go for it, guys.
Awesome. So moving on, we've got the topic of win mentality. Losing is ultimately that thing that pushes roleplay forward, be it losing a gunfight, gaining yourself a nemesis, making a mistake and getting sent to Sizuga, having a rival business, fighting for customers, or tracking down a prized gun. All of these avenues lead into further roleplay for all parties involved. Roleplay isn't simply about winning or losing, it's about creating those storylines between a whole host of individuals. And losing is just one way that those storylines can be advanced. So that's a good thing for all of us to remember. Next up, we have staff accountability. I know that one of the topics on the forums had mentioned some staff members who had not been getting held accountable to some of their actions. Staff members are players too, and are held to the same, if not higher, standards as the rest of the player base. They should in no way be abusing their in-game powers or status to their advantage. And if you happen to find a staff member breaking a rule or abusing their position, either put it in a player report, or if you do not feel comfortable in submitting one of those for the situation at hand, please open a ticket and request it to either be community lead or manager locked. And then we will handle it from there and go through the process that we need to. Rule breaks and zero tolerance punishments. So, when making decisions based on rule breaks or zero tolerance breaks, our admin plus team endeavors to look at all evidence involved from all sides. Um, we need to ensure that we're making an informed decision when it comes to something as heavy as zero tolerance. When I say we, just for some clarification, sort of looping back to that player report section in the beginning, we never handle player reports simply as just one person. It is a collaborative team effort. We're all putting in our thought process and when it comes to these player reports. And so, zero tolerance, the word, has a bit of a misconception when it comes to its name. Zero tolerance breaches are always going to be acted upon, but they don't always end in a temporary or a permanent ban. Zero tolerance means that we don't tolerate this type of behavior and not that it results in a permanent ban every time. When it comes to boundaries, especially ones that break that zero tolerance breach, um, we sorry, just boundaries simply, not any that break zero tolerance. Staff, we can't enforce any boundaries between players unless they've been set between the players themselves. This doesn't need to be a back and forth conversation between the individuals, but the line in the sand does need to be drawn by one of the parties. If that is further overstepped, then staff, we are able to become involved and take further action based on what happened. So moving forward into developers and their project priorities, the comment I think I develop what I feel like mentality was brought up. Our developers should be focused on developing scripts and features that they are passionate and interested in. One thing to keep in mind is that if someone has a passion or a desire behind developing something, that item is usually handled with way more care and love than if they do something that they dread to work on. There are times where sometimes other things might get lost in the mix with the needs of the community. Um, we'll be working on making sure that we are finding a balance between passion projects and the needs of our community. We have a development team made up of people of differing skill sets, so people tackle what they can and then research and learn what they can't. There are some times where maybe other things might get lost in the mix with what the needs of the community are, but we're going to be working on that balance 100%. Rule play. This was brought up as hiding behind rules and role play. So, stating rules such as you should value your life during role play tends or to try and enforce an interaction from players, very much causes animosity between players in that scene, or deep feeling of distrust. The better option is that unless a scene is causing you out of character discomfort, play the scene out to the best of your ability and then discuss any potential rule breaks afterwards in DMs in a positive way, or be it a player report if it comes to that severity, rather than trying to correct it in that moment. Gate-kept mechanics and whitelisted roles. Collaboration is key when it comes to roleplay, be it through our interactions with others and the information that we offer each other. However, on that same line, if you find that you are unable to find information in server about certain mechanics involved in whitelisted roles, please open a ticket. We're more than happy to either point you in the right direction when it comes to research and get you started there, or help you on your way to getting access to whitelisted roles / mechanics for your character. Now we get to player economy / realism versus creativity. While we are rooted in a historical setting, we should be mindful to suspend a certain amount of disbelief when it comes to roleplay situations. There are some situations that may only be possible through /me's rather than mechanics, but that doesn't make them any less valid. While focusing on an economy that's based around items that you can physically have in games is great, there's a world of possibilities outside of what can be implemented as an item. Never be afraid to say yes and when it comes to roleplay that steps outside of these mechanics. While we may never add specific items, that doesn't mean that they can't be created through creativity /me's and then further offered to the public. Something for us all to be mindful about is to remember to honor roleplay that's offered to us, as this can only serve to push roleplay forward. And then this isn't on the PowerPoint, but this is just a little bit of a reminder. Um, Player run events, they're only limited by creativity. Staff approval or oversight isn't needed unless you're looking to book the event server or have specific requests that we can help with. And if you come to us with a specific request, we're going to try everything in our power to make sure that we can get that for you. So moving forward, I wanted to give a little bit of a look into some of the things that we have been working on in the Admin Plus side of things. Oh, Winna is giving a little wave. She is I called her the event queen. Um, she's a great resource for anyone who's looking to host an event. Um, but looking back to this, so I wanted to give a bit of a look into what we as an Admin Plus team have been working on recently. So, for laws and ordinances, we're in our final stretch of a law and ordinance rework. This rework is serving to consolidate and simplify our laws and ordinances. And if anyone who has looked at that document, you know that it's pretty crazy. It's got quite a lot of information, and we're looking to consolidate it and make the charging and serving of times way more clear cut. It will lower the time needed to process paperwork for deputies as well. It's still a work in progress, but we're coming to the end of it and we're eager to implement these changes. That'll mean less time stuck with your nose in paperwork if you're a deputy, less time during processing or waiting in a cell, and more time actually role playing. Now, the next topic are some changes to the Department of Justice and their processes. I am actually going to invite Ash Conan to speak, our Chief Justice. I think that he can give a great amount of insight to this.
Hello. Okay, is this where I discuss clerks or overall changes? Because there's a lot.
Let's do some the administrative clerk changes. I know that
Okay.
we're going to get into some of the larger judicial changes once we get to the questions.
Okay, cool. So for clerk administrative changes, we will be adding a new clerk role and position. So now we will have a chief clerk, judicial clerk, and administrative clerk. Chief clerks and judicial clerk will pretty much remain the same. They have no changes. But administrative clerk will not be required to be bar certified to enter. They will still handle like all the fees and payments and any admin work associated with any DOJ work. But they cannot do depositions, affidavit, or will notarizations. Pretty much anything that requires a legal expertise or bar certification. But the main goal is that we are lowering the barrier to entry to become a judicial clerk. So you don't have to be terrified of the bar exam and whatnot. Hopefully, this can boost the server health when it comes to collecting fees, clerk RP, and so on. With that, we also have a couple of changes. We also they're mostly fee changes. Business license registration fees will be lowered to $40 instead of the previous 60. The upkeep will be kept still at $10 a month. Hopefully, this will incentivize more businesses to be created, especially if you're creating a character that is not particularly wealthy or whatnot. So hopefully, this will get your foot through the door. We will also going to be removing managed license fees. This includes the ones with the name changes. Essentially, we're reverting it back to a period of time where we didn't charge for managed licenses. So we hope we can go back to that with ease. That being said, though, we will still continue on with marriage record keeping like it is currently. So you will still have to be required to do the marriage license or like to file it, but you won't have to be going around and trying to chase a clerk for it. Name changes are also going to be lowered from $125 to $75. Again, the whole point is being more accessible to people who are playing less of wealthy characters. And then lastly, we are also going to be remove adult and guardianships legally. This does not mean that you can't roleplay it. You can still roleplay it however you want. It just means that we as a DOJ will no longer be handling this because this just creates more workload for the DOJ, and hopefully this will help us focus into the other administrative stuff that the DOJ can work on, considering that the number of people we have in DOJ. We're also moving clerk and judge application to the forums, so it is congruent with the whitelisted job application within WWRP. So yeah, no longer you have to contact Clara, apply through a weird Google format, bless you formulation. And then yeah, those are the changes are being worked on as administrative. Nothing is final, like set in stone. They're just things that are being worked on. And I will pass back to Titus.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ash.
Thank you.
So, moving forward, we're going to get into some of the community questions that we received for this. So, the first segment is going to be questions aimed towards our developers. So, the first one is our current devs are working their butts off and is greatly appreciated. If someone was interested in helping with that side of things or joining the dev team, what skills or experience would be beneficial? What options are available to help, if not as an actual developer? We have a very small but mighty team of talented developers who are all integral in the process. However, we're always seeking more programmers. Understanding and being able to program in Lua and JavaScript is a very attractive quality and something that we need more of. With a fundamental understanding of HTML, CSS, as well as C# and other object-oriented languages, they're also very desirable skills. There's always room for more on the team in terms of artists and modelers, but currently, right now, we're lacking in raw programming power. The next question. So there's a lot of cool stuff already in the server. I think a lot of people just want the old stuff that used to work to be fixed so it works again. And maybe the newer stuff that is broken to be fixed too, rather than adding new mechanics, not that they aren't appreciated. This is something that is being actively looked into. We're in the process of looking at what we currently have versus what was present in the past, such as 1.0, and what code we're able to pull and adapt, and what features that we have currently that are a bit broken, that we can fix. Will there be increased rewards for slaughtering livestock? As currently, it is not worth the time versus reward of doing so. Also, I know a few butchers I see would love tools to possibly be able to butcher and give those higher rewards, putting them to work and increasing the role play for everyone. Up until now, livestock slaughtering had been handled by the butchering script as opposed to the livestock script. Since they're separate scripts, the butchering script doesn't take the animal's grade into account when calculating a loot table. We're moving towards implementing slaughter into the livestock script, which will allow the player to mechanically slaughter their livestock, which will also move livestock in line with horses and pets, where the animal does not truly die until the owner decides that it does. Moving on to some questions that were directed towards law enforcement. The first one is encouragement of non-LEO/bounding players to participate in anti-gang or anti-criminal activities such as store robberies, bank robberies, etc. As of late, the general sentiment from non-LEO or non-crim is that nothing ever happens after a crime is taken care of, and that's where a lot of the friction between LEO and citizens stem from. More deputization and general communication between LEO and general citizens would help a lot with this friction. So while deputization is something that happens in the state, um, let me just go ahead and preface these were answered by Elio. I'm just being their voice for this. All of these questions were answered by their respective departments. I should have said that in the beginning. So moving back. So while deputization is something that happens in the state, it is only used sparingly. We're looking for ways to be more open and approachable with citizens of the state, from a newsletter that will be back in circulation soon, to having sheriffs assigned to counties that will help citizens and sheriffs grow bonds, which we can already see happening slowly. Sheriffs putting public telegrams out when they're around has seen an uptick in letters and telegrams received directly from citizens. We're looking at ways to increase this more through outreach and less crime-focused sheriff's office events. Moving on to the next question. Will a healthier approach be taken when briefing members of LEO with what to expect in their interactions? In regards to the standard they should be setting roleplay-wise, example, drawing out conflict situations, reducing mechanics abuse, etc. This is something that the Sheriff's Office is looking at addressing. Some of our main focuses with the shift in command are 1, reducing toxicity, 2, improving roleplay and roleplay etiquette, and 3, encouraging growth and positivity. Some of the ways that we're already in the process of implementing this is working on a checklist for different ranks so that when you are promoted, you can learn your new responsibilities and help learn what's expected of you. We're looking more at event server training and social events so that we can cover and refresh what we expect from LEO. We also want more transparency in what we expect of each rank and each person within LEO so we can help continue with growth within that role. And we are being firmer on toxicity and being more proactive on how we approach these instances and are aiming to be quicker to react to stop things escalating. Most LEOC members have an open Discord policy, so we would like to remind people that they can come with suggestions at any time, and problems and concerns are welcome too. We all want the same thing, to see the Sheriff's Office grow and improve, which in turn helps the server health. So moving on from LEO questions to the Department of Prisons, we have, when will things be fixed for the prisoners where they might actually want to log in and roleplay being in prison? First and foremost, this is quite a loaded question for being so short. Sisika is a unique experience considering it's in an isolated location with a small population. At the end of the day, it's a give and take. Prisoners need other prisoners or guards to roleplay, and guards need other guards and prisoners to roleplay with. Our Sisika watchmen are more often than not happy to log in when there are prisoners available. Along that note, if you find yourself in Sisika, either as a guard or a prisoner, don't be afraid to be creative when it comes to activities that you can find yourself doing, be it at a work detail, conducting maintenance, community service, or getting creative and attempting to create a weapon for some protection behind bars. Players in Sisica are extremely giving with roleplay and some of our biggest yes and players. So moving on to questions pointed towards the Department of Justice. What is being done to revamp the DOJ court system? And is there anything we, the players, could possibly do to help speed things along on this front? Ash, I'm going to go ahead and invite you back up again. I think that you are the best person to answer this. I know that you wanted to go more in depth. Let me find you in the list. Oh my God, you got hidden. There we go.
Hello. Perfect, and thank you, Titus. So when it comes to DOJ changes, there are a couple of DOJ changes. So one thing is we're going to be making verdicts shorter in character, as not to make people waste their time, especially their waiting times. They can be dreadful during the court cases. This means that the deliberation time shouldn't take like longer than 15 to 30 minutes. This is because even in your DRP, it takes about this time, if not longer, for the judge to evaluate everything that goes on into the decision, the case, the evidence, the arguments, and all of that. If the judges wishes to have long and address all the arguments that they think or feel that was important that was brought up during the trial, they can do so on the docket once the short, pretty much TLDR oral version in character is given. This should lower the time it takes to, again, deliver the verdict in character, should make it simpler for the public to understand. We don't want it to just draw it out and make it super duper nerdy for the public to just fall asleep listening to us yap about something for like 20 minutes. For the nerds who are involved, that are still very heavily invested into the niche details of it, they can still ask the judges after the trial of the case, or they can wait for the docket submissions, with the aim of that being to keep it short and still be written in a non-legalese language for the people to be able to understand. Management is also working on behind-the-scenes guideline for sentencing. This part is still being worked out. We will also most likely take out time considered served after the trial. As a public also needs to have the perception in character that said character is being punished for their crime. As well as when prosecution secures the verdict they wanted, they need to feel rewarded for what they have secured. And the effort that they all put in, because prosecution is honestly so much effort, probably the most effort role in the server. Also, in order to combat the dreadful waiting time for courts in Sisica, we're working into changes that are bail and besides bail before trial, besides the temporary ones. So in case you missed it, currently we're incentivizing people to request more bail. LEO should be also more lenient on giving more people bail so that people shouldn't be like bed rotting until their trial show up. But we're also thinking of other alternatives to combat that besides bail. Nothing is concrete yet, but it is being worked on. I believe Titus already mentioned laws and orders are being rewritten. It's not being written by DOJ, but the goal is that to keep the definition simple for WWRP and for the size of what it is. Judges will also now moving forward will be sort of focusing more towards the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law. This pretty much means that if there is a grayish area zone or like there's grayish area definition of a law and ordinance, but it's obvious that the spirit that they are guilty, but quote unquote, it does not actually fit the definition, they will be found guilty for it. Like, yeah, oh, that's technicality, this, that, no. Spiritually, if they're guilty, they'll be found guilty, just the good old Western style. The Constitution will also have a lot of changes by the end of this. As you can imagine, with a lot of changes to departments, it will not be looking the same as it is now. Lastly, we have civil cases. For civil cases, we will be adding an additional burden of proof for the case to have ground to go to trial. sort of like the equivalency of probable cause being a burden of proof to proceed to trial in criminal cases. Obviously, civil cases does not require the high burden of proof, but something needs to be there to establish grounds for the trial. This is being done because of lately we have seen a high increase of civil cases being brought up without any basis that shouldn't even make it to trial. So this has been abused. So a new burden of proof based on historical accuracy will be implemented and added. And I believe that's it for now. This is also to mean that, and how players can help speed these things up. For how players can speed things, players are encouraged to write their suggestion in the judiciary thread. I believe it was started by, I forgot the name. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. But there is a judiciary thread. If you have suggestions and you want to discuss it, please, we encourage you to go there and discuss it. As for role players, please remember that court role play is just role play, and it's not an IRL court. Take people to court, sue them for things, do things during trial to spice things up, and don't worry too much about it. Don't think it's. I know it can be scary, but just don't think that it is court. You're going to fuck up. At the end of the day, we're all here to role play and have fun. It is not a serious place. Give and take the entertainment within the courtroom and the process, and keep the DOJ court system alive by participating in it. This is not, again, the full list of the changes, but this is of what more I can think of at the moment. Also, please do not forget to ask for bail on the dockets. We urge you to do so. And I will pass it to Titus again, or unless there are more.
There is one more, I believe.
Okay.
So this is a hefty one. I'm only going to read the first paragraph out loud. Would there be a
Okay.
way to incentivize a speedy trial or encourage more people to become detectives and actually investigate crimes, interview witnesses, etc., before arresting someone for a serious crime? Because in reality, there's nothing really stopping anyone from just griefing and making up a story to frame someone they don't like because whatever in character, out of character reason, and convince people to testify and have the law throw the person who was framed in Sisika for 2 months if they pled not guilty, then possibly stop the trial and wait another 2 weeks to be found guilty or not guilty, where if they pled guilty in the first place, they'd get out faster. Seems like something is very flawed there and discourages people from wanting to continue to play the server due to flawed legal system if they want to play criminal characters.
Okay, so for speedy trials, they are a very difficult subject to tackle in our current state. Scheduling is pretty much the biggest problem. You will see it in any other servers that also have code roleplay. Getting people aligned for a specific time is the trickiest and the hardest part. However, the temporary solutions is to provide more bail have been put into effect while we flesh out more of the bigger issues for the bigger changes. With people getting bail easier, this will hopefully reduce the dissatisfaction again with wait times and keeping player engaged with the server. There is no real solution to make the system quote unquote move quicker, end quote. As someone who has to assign the criminal cases based on time zones, personal availability, conflict, alt, etc., we encourage you really to just request bail. Even if it was not given during the time of arrest, request it on the docket. Judges will always have the final say on it, especially since we're more lenient now until more changes come in. As for the provided suggestion, took a quick look at it. It's something we can look into for sure. Currently, we had people, quote unquote, time served during sentences if they're found guilty, which is something that also feels unsatisfactory for prosecution. Again, hopefully, this, for instance, more people should be on bail, and if they don't show up or break the conditions, then that's on the player of the defendant. The question is also correct that the system is designed for more players. I will admit that. And it worked nicely since 1899, but the server obviously has changed. And it mostly changed a lot since the end of last year. Of course, that's not to say that it had this problem back then, but those problems are generally addressed, and hopefully with the changes, we will hope to address those problems.
Awesome. And I think there's actually one more question for
Mm-hmm.
you. Will
Yep,
there be a
that's fine.
reduction in entry requirements aside from 1 month in server and the like for entry on new players interested in a judiciary role? Will said role be simplified in a way that allows easy integration?
Mm-hmm. So I can't speak for prosecution, but for entering to DOJ as a clerk or a judge, you need to be whitelisted for at least a month. As these roles are whitelisted roles, and being a whitelisted roles, it provides you with privileged access to certain things and mechanics and documents. These entry requirements are in place to ensure that nefarious people don't infiltrate the system. In the past, there have been instances where people have deleted records without going through the proper corruption approval and roleplay and etc. As for ease of integration, clerk and judge roles are always provided training, and you're able to fully do the job once you completed the training. As mentioned previously, the bar exam requirement for becoming a standard administrative clerk are being lifted, and it will be easier for you to get your character's foot in the door if that's something you're interested in. However, if you're interested more into the court side of things as a judicial clerk, that will still be there as an option for you to take. Back to Thomas.
Awesome. Thank you. So moving on, we're going to be getting into some questions directed towards management. So the first one is, are there plans to tackle the epidemic of toxic individuals in the player base? So we're reviewing our server rules and expectations for the sake of clarity, and we'll have an update in the near future about that. We want to remind people to just please be kind to each other and remember that your roleplay does not exist without the input of all players together. We're considering some out of character channels designed to foster out of character community building and bridge some gaps between players who might not otherwise interact. Will there ever be a private way to discuss player behavior with staff, especially in cases of out of character bullying, abusive behavior, or other toxic actions? So, if there is a topic that you would like to discuss in a private setting, please open a ticket and request for it to be locked down to either Admin Plus, CL Plus, or Manager, depending on the severity of the situation. If you decide that a ticket is not locked down enough for your comfortability, you can always request it to be escalated and it will be locked appropriately. Are you at all concerned with the diminishing player population? Do you have anything you want to think will fix it, as well as building up more serious criminal roleplay elements that have gone since the various stories ended? Um, every story has its end, and we want to commend those who felt and realized that it was time to wrap up some of their criminal storylines. No one group is responsible for the story of the server as a whole. Every player and character adds to New Alexandria, criminal or otherwise. Players are allowed to create alts to explore new avenues. We are exploring advertisement opportunities to invite more players. We ask that existing players welcome them with opportunities and not just shut them out for not being part of your old gang. Know that our development team is also actively working on some new opportunities to fuel some fresh content. And while population fluctuations have always been commonplace in communities such as these, it would be disingenuous to say that there's no concern over the current state of the active population. However, with refreshed management, developers, and admin teams, we're working very hard to address not only the player population, but many other concerns that players may have or have had in the past. When will transparency be a priority when it comes to upcoming changes rather than cryptic or vague hints? If anything, not just mechanics or dev work, but any upcoming changes. This question applies to everything on an out of character level, be it departments, offices, etc. So this community meeting is a big step that we are taking to bring back transparency and open communication within the Wild West community. While sometimes vague hints and teasers are fun, we understand that sometimes it can feel like nothing's being worked on. We plan on using the staff messages channel more often to communicate further. In terms of developer transparency, many of our developers have a roadmap published on the forums that they can use to keep the community updated on what they are actively working on. In a similar vein, we have a new update changelog channel designed to get actual updates to the changelog in front of more players' eyes. That way, you're not sifting through the forums. We also have a new header up on the forums that lists the changelog as well. So if you want to go ahead and look through the entire thing, or the changelog in its entirety, there's a much easier way of finding it. Government is being run fine, although it would be cool to see the governor being the primary conduit for management's decisions. Maybe preface such things with the USA and I have come to an agreement after many discussions and debates, and we have reached a verdict on topic A. So unfortunately, sometimes decisions have to be made that won't be popular with the people. Um, it would really be unfair for the governor to have to front the criticism for that decision if that player and that character wasn't behind that decision. This is why you'll occasionally see these changes implemented into the government federally, versus through in-state government. Would it be a cool idea to try and set up a lore dump of WildWestRP and advance the timeline based on everything that has happened since the hurricane? It's been a few years, some new tech, guns, etc., but mainly trying to enforce that or reinforce that it's an alternate Western fantasy rather than a realistic depiction of the past. That way, immersion can be maintained through moderate suspension of disbelief. So currently, we are not looking to do any sort of timeline advancement. We're a server not only rooted in real life history, but with a rich New Alexandrian history, keeping in mind an amount of suspension of disbelief to allow for creative freedom. What purpose did the knockdown effect in combat serve? It was a change made without really telling us role players how to respond to it and how to behave when it happens. So, this was a feature implemented by an update to our framework that we didn't really have a say in getting. But as of today, this feature is going to be removed, thanks to everyone's discussion about it. Why do we not announce new patches in Discord where they are more visible to the player base? As mentioned earlier, we do have a new update changelog channel that our changelogs are going to be posted to. Hopefully, they will not be buried by other messages or rely on players directly seeking them out. So this is also quite a long one. Let's see. While I'm relatively new, I've been curious to see the opinions of everyone on how they feel about the server, and one complaint I've seen is the most is population levels. I'm curious to know if there are any thoughts or ideas on how to boost this. I know for written roleplay servers on Discord and the like, we use sites like Discord to advertise the server and get more players in. While it doesn't always work, it certainly helps. I've also had the thought it might be fun to have some sort of incentive program for people to invite their friends in. Something as simple as offering in-game money, food, supplies, etc. if someone refers a friend and that friend joins. Um, so we've been dipping our toes back into advertisement to allow for individuals to be able to see that we as a server exists. Discord is a great resource that we are going to be looking into. In terms of server incentives, we are hesitant to give any sort of boost up in game based on actions out of game, sort of along the same lines of doing streamer packages. That is always something that we've had a fairly heavy stance on not doing. This makes sure that all players are on the same footing no matter what. In-game events are a great way to collect memories, even footage if that's something that you are interested in. Another section of this question that didn't fit on the slide is that they were looking to um, get screenshots or video footage to create their own content. That is definitely something that you can do. If you are interested in doing it directly for the server, I suggest please reach out to the media team. Um, they are a team of great individuals that create absolutely amazing content for the community. So if that's something that you're interested in, please open a ticket and see about joining them. So next we have revert the rule of 4 or increase to rule of 6 to encourage more group play. So as it stands, we don't have the player base to allow for rule of 6 to be reinstated. That has been a change from a few years ago, and we are definitely not looking to implement it with the current population that we have. While it may work on a max population server, we just don't have the numbers to allow that to be healthy. The rule of law that was implemented recently, the rule allowing deputies to respond to situations with 6 when involved with kidnappings, hostages, or bank robberies, that's meant as a measure to enforce the severity of those crimes. When holding someone hostage or breaking into a bank, those should be treated as serious crimes. And numbers can't be the only thing taken into account when engaging in those sorts of crimes. As a note, even if there are 5 to 6 deputies responding to one of those situations, it was bumped to that number to allow for deputies to leave 1 or 2 behind to continue role play with the hostages. This way, a hostage is not left alone at a bank when a chase begins. If there is a situation in which you want to have more players involved with an interaction, we do have war tickets available. So these are events that we create that you can have a far higher amount of people on each side. So that is an option if you're looking for that. Last, we have close down the server for a while, focus on more development as the server is extremely outdated mechanics-wise, restructure pretty much everything and start fresh. I do not see the server going anywhere in its current state. Restructure the whole admin plus team, as some people should not be in the positions that they're in. So we have several great players actively driving stories, and we're not going to be shutting down anything for this time. Their role play is commendable, and we want to see them flourish. As for the admin team, there have been numerous recent changes that we feel are positive and heading in a good direction. Some positions have been vacated, but the server has recently changed ownership, and we've introduced new administrators, taken on new developers, and absolutely all of them have shown a passion for this community. So now I'm going to go ahead and invite Nelly, one of our managers up here. Let me find you. There we go.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello? Is this thing on?
Nelly, are you there?
I'm trying.
You got to accept the invite, Nelly.
How?
Oh, Nelly's dead. Nelly,
I'm not dead.
it's your time to shine.
How?
There
I
we
did
go.
it. I did it. I did the thing. I
welcome.
said you're like I don't know what to do.
You did it. All right, the floor is yours.
Gosh. Okay. Awkward. So, basically, first off, I just want to say, no one put Nelly in a corner. Initially, it was that, but that's okay. Anyway, so, basically, I am currently working on some projects, for making community showcase type of things. It's kind of like, cool wallpapers and stuff where we can go through and, be able to show off, various things. So if you guys are good with Photoshop or making, like photo collages, please DM me. Yes, like the New Day ones. It's something that I want to kind of do to, showcase you guys because, well, I don't know that we're going to be able to do loading screens. I don't know if that's possible. But we're gonna try doing some various things, and if it's possible, we'll do it. But we'll see. Yeah, I'm leaving stage now. I embarrassed myself.
Thank you, Nelly. You didn't embarrass yourself. So moving on, we have some showcases for you. So we're going to go ahead and get started and watch those. Thank you so much for Ulrich for making that amazing showcase of some of his recent work. So some of the things that were covered in the video are new and improved livestock management menu, livestock paper overhaul and reissue. You can now put descriptions in for your animals, mechanical livestock slaughter with scaled rewards, prop NPC framework with new rodeo prop NPCs, and a fishing mini game concept. On to the next showcase, and this was put together by our amazing media team.
You don't look like the ranching type, son. Now, this state will try to tell you that crime doesn't pay, but I'm here to tell you otherwise. Being a criminal around here ain't easy. Gotta do some work to prove yourself. Thankfully,